color, so an egg is actually normally a symbol of mourning.
Correct, yeah.
When people mourn, so when they come back from the funeral, sometimes the eggs on Tisha B'Av, Erev Tisha B'Av. Before we fast and mourn the destruction of the temple, we eat eggs. So it's a symbol of mourning. But color is a symbol of celebration. So there's that dual thing that this is a period of time during the year where there is mourning because it was a great tragedy. And yet there's the Lag BaOmer in the middle, which is celebration. So that's the kind of combination.
Colored
eggs, yeah.
Okay, very interesting.
You are listening to the JP Show,
where we discuss the issues you care about from a Jewish perspective.
I am Rabbi G.
And I am Rabbi Levi.
And we hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome everyone to another JP Show. I am Rabbi Garari, Rabbi G, and this is Rabbi Levi. And we are, another week's gone by so quickly.
It's crazy.
I don't know what happened to the week, but it went by very, very quickly. Wherever you're listening, please subscribe or leave a review. And it's been a hectic week. Lots of different things happening. Lots of good things happening, actually. BINA is buzzing away. That thing on Fathers and Sons on Saturday night, Matzah Shabbos, was fantastic.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Sunday morning, learning after davening was also really good. And we're just on a roll. And of course, tonight is a special night, Lag BaOmer.
Lag BaOmer, very special festival.
So what is Lag BaOmer?
So let's talk about Lag BaOmer a little bit.
Okay.
So first of all, let's just go down to what does the word Lag BaOmer actually mean?
Yeah.
The 33rd day of the Omer.
That's Lag. Lag means 33rd. Lamed Gimel.
Yeah. As we all know, we're counting the Omer now in anticipation to Shavuot. And Lag BaOmer is a day of celebration.
It is.
For a number of reasons.
Worldwide.
Yeah. Let's go through the simple reasons first.
Well, simple reasons is we know that we mourn actually. We partially mourn during this time of the year because Rabbi Akiva, the great Rabbi Akiva, had 24,000 students that all died in this period of time. But we are told that they stopped dying on Lag BaOmer, which is why there's partial celebration. I mean, it's still a tragedy, but at least there was a reprieve and the epidemic came to an end. But perhaps more important in terms of the celebration was the fact that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was the prize student of Rabbi Akiva, who was also a Kabbalist, he was a Talmudist and a Kabbalist, and he authored the Zohar, which is a seminal work of Kabbalah. He passed away on this day, which is interesting because he actually instructed that the day of his passing, he said that the day of his passing, he had reached an unbelievable level of oneness with Hashem, with God. He had reached the perfection of his life, so to speak, spiritually speaking, and that his life would have a tremendous impact on the world. And he asked that the day of his Yortzeit, which is the day of his passing, which is every year the 33rd day of the Omer, 18th of Iyar, should be a celebration. And people should join him in celebrating his own day of passing, because on that day, each year he said that his life work comes together, is elevated to a very lofty level and has a tremendous impact. It releases a tremendous blessing and a tremendous energy into the world, which is a cause of great celebration. And that's why he said whoever rejoices with him becomes this sort of recipient of great blessing. And that's why worldwide there's many customs. People come together, they sing, light bonfires. In whatever way, people celebrate, joining in Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in his celebration.
Yeah, so that's a great synopsis. There are various customs, some famous, some not so famous. So we would maybe run through them because they might be of interest to people. Then I want to discuss a more general, broader concept here. Some people have a custom to play with a bow and arrow on Lag BaOmer. I've even seen actually quite great people in Miron. In Miron every year there's this massive celebration. Well, this year maybe not so much because of the war and everything. But and I've seen people like shoot an arrow into the air. What's the?
I think the two reasons. I mean, the one thing is that the bow and arrow is a symbol of what took place in that time. When Rabbi Akiva had all these students, Rabbi Akiva lived in a time, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai lived in a time that was a terrible time for Jewish people. It was Roman rule, Roman oppression, and at that time they had made a decree to prohibit Jewish learning. there could be no BINA at that time.
In other words, yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of them defied. So they used to gather students in secret and learn with them in caves and all this kind of thing. And then people would stand guard. So like kids or students would stand guard outside the caves. And what they would do is if they thought something was happening, they just made as if they're just in the forest playing bow and arrow. Similar to the dreidel a little bit.
That's right.
In Hanukkah, yeah. There's also a symbolism I once read about the bow and arrow is the way you shoot an arrow is you have to pull, what's at the bow? You have to pull the bow towards you and then it shoots, right?
Right.
And symbolic also, if you want to inspire other people, you want to have an impact on other people, you also have to become strong yourself. So that's kind of an idea. But yeah, that's right.
I think there's another idea, if I'm not mistaken, that the Hebrew word for bow and arrow is keshes, which is the same word as a rainbow.
Right.
And there was no rainbow in the time. A rainbow is a symbol of Hashem's anger because he wants to bring the flood, and the rainbow is a sign that he's not going to bring a flood. During great people's lifetimes, in their merit, there was no rainbow. So during the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it says there was no rainbow.
Correct.
You have a very interesting custom, which someone else recently told me they also heard of it. I haven't seen too many people do it, but it's definitely an interesting custom. That is to eat colored eggs.
Yeah, so my grandmother used to do that, and my mother, and we do.
You put it into a pot with onion peels, and it gets red. And
yes, you cook eggs with onion peels, and it becomes very red, so it's like a colored egg. Growing up, I wasn't actually quite sure what the reason was, but it has a little bit to do with the story of Rabbi Akiva, because color, so an egg is actually normally a symbol of mourning.
Correct, yeah.
When people mourn, so when they come back from the funeral, sometimes they eat eggs on Tisha B'Av, Erev Tisha B'Av. Before we fast and mourn the destruction of the temple, we eat eggs. So it's a symbol of mourning. But color is a symbol of celebration. So there's that dual thing that this is a period of time during the year where there is mourning because it was a great tragedy. And yet there's the Lag BaOmer in the middle, which is celebration. So that's the kind of combination.
Colored, yeah.
Colored eggs, yeah.
Okay, very interesting. There are other customs. Some people have the custom to go outside, to go outdoors. What's the symbolism of that? I've never actually quite understood that, but there is such a custom.
So there's a custom that one of the Chabad Rebbes used to do that and then the Rebbe used to encourage parades and stuff all outside. One of the idea of outside is because what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai began was a process of dismantling the walls between the secrets of Torah and the revealed part of Torah. Up until Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the esoteric part of Torah was actually completely unknown. And it was hidden, no one had access to it except for a very few individuals in every generation. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai instructed, he didn't actually write the Zohar, he authored the Zohar in the sense that he taught it to his students and they transcribed it, but he instructed that it should be written down and that it should become a book, which wasn't revealed right away, actually it was revealed a bit later, but it was the beginning of, nowadays it's much Kabbalah and what we call the Pnimiyut HaTorah, the innermost secrets of the Torah. The Torah has the revealed part of the Torah, which is the Talmud, the laws, the obvious lessons, and so on. And then there's the soul of the Torah, which is the Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic teachings, the inner secrets of Torah, which that began a process of, and they were always locked, so to speak, locked away with walls around them, so to speak. And therefore this began the process of dismantling those walls, which is the symbolism of going out into a field where there's no walls. That's right. The idea.
Am I missing any customs?
Also, writing a bonfire is an interesting custom.
Oh, of course, that's right. That's one of the.
So one of the reasons is simple. It's like we write a candle for someone that's passed away and that kind of thing. So we light the bonfire in his honor, but also because we are taught that the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it's recorded, was amazing. On the day of his passing, like BaOmer, he gathered his students. He told them he's going to reveal things he's never ever revealed. He talked to them about the power of the day when he's reached his climax, so to speak, of piety and holiness and so on, oneness with God. And he says that around his house there was this glow. There was a fire around the house and also a glow on his face. That as he was teaching, he said, this one should listen, this one should write. And his students were around his bed and he was teaching and they weren't looking at him. His face was impossible to look at because the divine presence was glowing on his face. And he was talking, and then he came to a verse which ends with the word Chaim, life. And he said the word Chaim and he stopped. And they were waiting for the next sentence and it didn't come. And slowly they looked up and they saw him that he had peacefully passed away.
Right.
And he returned his soul, his pure soul. So that concept of the light around the house and the light on his face and so on became the idea of creating fire, bonfire on Lag BaOmer.
Right. So a central theme of Lag BaOmer, as you mentioned, is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and his authoring of the Zohar, which is then the source of all the Kabbalah that followed, and the Hasidic teachings, and esoteric teachings. So let's discuss a little bit this concept of Kabbalah, because I know it sort of like comes in and out of style, but people talk about it, even like people not necessarily Jewish, they know the word Kabbalah. So maybe we can discuss a little bit what Kabbalah isn't and what it is. Like, what do you think people make the biggest mistake when they say the word Kabbalah? Like, what are you...
Well, I think the mistake is because there's a lot of like what they call pop Kabbalah out there, and a lot of Kabbalah that's just like a little bit disconnected from God, actually. But it talks about, the Sfirot, the 10 powers of the way of creation, and they talk a lot about Ein Sof and the infinite, the infinite energy and all this kind of stuff. So number one, Kabbalah is a part of Torah. That's number one, right? And it's a very important part of Torah. It gives us the inner meaning and the inner depth of a soul, of the mitzvot, of an understanding of the structure of how God created the world and the powers of creation and so on. However, it's Torah, and therefore Torah and God are one. So healthy Kabbalah is only, I'm not talking about now, by the way, like Kabbalistic experiences where people had all sorts of meditative or powerful experiences, miraculous experiences, everyone, these are great people in different generations who embarked on Kabbalistic
journeys,
yeah. I'm talking about the study of Kabbalah, right? Just the other night, I was asked to give a talk on Kabbalah. And I spoke about a few aspects of Kabbalah, but one of the things I made the point was that there is people, organizations that supposedly teach Kabbalah, but they teach it as a pathway to spirituality quite disconnected from mitzvot. Now I understand that because when you think of Kabbalah, you think of sort of migrating to like a spiritual sphere. We're not sort of talking about the physicality so much, talking about the inner workings and the spiritual structures of the universe, of creation and so on, right? And you could sort of feel very spiritual. You could feel that you're sort of upgrading to more of a spiritual perspective than a physical, mundane one, right? However, that's not Jewish Kabbalah at all.
Yeah.
Jewish Kabbalah is almost a means to an end in a way. In other words, the spiritualization that comes learning Kabbalah actually is supposed to lead to a greater and deeper understanding of what a mitzvah is, what an action is. In fact, in Judaism, especially according to the Hasidic teachings, which is based on Kabbalah, we learn that there's nothing more powerful than an action, a mitzvah, putting on tefillin, lighting a Shabbos candle, putting up a mezuzah, and so on, right? Giving charity with a coin, whatever the case is, or a credit card for that matter nowadays. But it's the physical action that connects the highest of the high with the lowest of the low, meaning this world, right? And Kabbalah is supposed to motivate us to do more of that. So it's not about just feeling good and feeling spiritual. Part of it might include that, but its purpose is to enhance and motivate us to do more in the area of Torah and mitzvot, right? So if the Kabbalah is not motivating you to do more, it's the wrong Kabbalah. Right? So, because there are disciplines, there are organizations that teach Kabbalah, and they're quite open about that you don't have to, it's not about keeping mitzvot, it's not about being engaged Jewishly. It's about Kabbalah, Kabbalah,
yeah.
Right? And that's not authentic Kabbalah at all.
The analogy that's brought very often is that Kabbalah is like the soul of the Torah, and the halakha, sort of the practice, is like the body.
Right.
Just like you understand with the soul and the body, the whole point of the soul is to make the body alive. If the soul's not making the body alive, something's wrong with the soul, right?
Correct,
so
correct.
The point is that we have the body, which is the actual building of Judaism, but then in order to make that alive and with warmth and with inspiration, we study the works of Kabbalah, which originated from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and this is his day.
Yeah.
So happy Lag BaOmer, everyone. Let's try to connect to this day a little bit, adding in joy, adding in depth into our Judaism.
And if your community is doing, whatever community you belong to, they're doing a little Lag BaOmer celebration.
Join it.
Try join, even if it's for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Just to connect to the power of the day. And we'll see you here back next week.
All the best, everyone.
Have a good week.